Since King Von passed, it's been one crazy blame game and a whole lot of drama with Quando Rondo, Lil Durk, and Lil Tim. One's trying to prove they're innocent, while the others are riding hard for their crew. You know how it is in these rap circles? Sometimes justice isn't about courtrooms, it's street business. So, should we really be keeping tabs on Lil Tim? Seems like he's not gonna just stroll out of jail without some serious payback from the Black Disciples. The whole situation's got everyone wondering what's gonna go down next, especially with Lil Durk's cryptic messages. Lil Durk's heartbroken message. Nobody saw it coming when Derek Banks, aka Lil Durk, dropped that interview dissing Timothy Leaks, aka Lil Tim, calling him a nerd for pulling the trigger. It was like he was saying, this guy ain't even worth taking down my homie. What was more interesting was how quick Quando Rondo was to stand up for his homie, Lil Tim, by tweeting, "The nerds got 7 of them last year." While that might have not been the best thing for him to say, because prison walls have got ears for you to chip in subtly that someone or some people were responsible for the death of 7 other people. Fast forward to 2021, and it's like everyone turned into social media detectives. Lil Durk, the master of keeping it low-key, liked to post about Lil Tim's release. Fans smelled something fishy and started whispering that Durk was keeping tabs on the situation. Then Lil Tim dropped off the list, and some folks thought it was a shot at Durk, but Lil Tim wasn't having it. He was quick to shut it down, saying, "Didn't even say that man's name, my partner's name is Durk. Stop clout chasing, fan page, before I come catch you." Let's rewind to November 6th, 2020. That's when things went from 0 to 100 real quick. King Von and his crew clashed with Quando Rondo's gang outside an Atlanta club. It was a wild brawl, and in the chaos, Lil Tim, rolling with Quando Rondo's crew, pulled the trigger. The result? He ended up behind bars, slapped with a murder charge. Now the real head scratcher is how Lil Tim, who should have probably been locked up or worse, managed to get out on a $100,000 bond. It's like the streets and the court system were playing a different game. When Lil Tim's trial kicked off in court, the story was a bit of a tug of war. The prosecution team argued that Tim had intentionally shot King Von, while his defense team said he pulled the trigger to protect himself. After about 3 weeks, the jury reached a decision. Lil Tim was found not guilty of murder. So what made the jury come to that decision? Well, it could have been a couple of things. One, you know what happens when there are a lot of people in a violent situation. It's really hard to put the whole blame on one person. Plus, Lil Tim had a seriously skilled lawyer, Noah Pines, who made a strong defense. In his statement, the case against Mr. Leaks was dismissed prior to ever being indicted, was his charge of victory. That meant that even though Lil Tim was facing some serious charges for the murder of King Von, he was soon out on bond from Fulton County Jail for posting $100,000 because the charges were dropped. Asian Doll, who was King Von's partner at the time, didn't hold back either. In a tweet which she later deleted said, "Police did it, not Tim." That may have been some sarcasm, meaning that for them to have released a guilty person, it must have been that he wasn't guilty at all. But her venting didn't stop there. Asian Doll had no patience for people discussing King Von in interviews. She expressed her frustration, saying, "Niggas doing all these interviews about King Von look goofy asel." To her, delving into open cases and recounting stories Von never shared was the height of snitching. She made it clear that Von would cut ties with anyone who did such things. In her eyes, these individuals were not handling their business like grown men, and that she had a strong dislike for those who couldn't stand their ground in the world of business. For her, it was all about getting things done like adults. King Von's family chimed in too. Initially, they were frustrated with the release of Lil Tim, the supposed murderer of their son, brother, and uncle. One of the family members came online to ask why they weren't consulted before he was released. Later on, they sent out a thank you note, thanking everyone for their support, even though they weren't happy about the outcome because the official confirmations of Tim's release were still up in the air. The charges against Tim also sparked quite a social debate. Some see him as a hero for allegedly taking down Von, even calling Von a serial killer, thanks to a controversial YouTube documentary linking him to multiple murders. Tim's charges are dropped now, seemingly closing the chapter on King Von's death. But where does Durk fit in? What's his connection to the whole situation? Lil Durk and King Von had a close relationship as they were both renowned rappers from Chicago and members of the same music collective called Only the Family, or OTF, and gang members of the Black Disciples. King Von was signed to Durk's record label, and Durk played a significant role in mentoring and supporting Von's career. They often collaborated on music together and were known to be brothers and good friends. Fate brought Durk and Von together on the streets of Chicago's South Side. While the details of their initial meeting remained somewhat mysterious, as the years rolled around, Durk was already making waves in the rap scene, gradually gaining recognition for his talent. In between the years that led to 2018, King Von, who was serving time, was released. This was the opportunity to cement his blooming relationship with Lil Durk. But it was in 2018 that Lil Durk made a pivotal move by signing King Von to his label, OTF. This decision not only solidified their professional relationship, but also deepened their connection, establishing a foundation of trust. Their musical synergy came to the forefront with the release of Crazy Story, a track that resonated with audiences and propelled King Von into the spotlight. This collaboration marked a turning point, showcasing their combined artistic prowess timeless and resonating deeply with fans. Continuing their creative journey into 2020, Lil Durk and King Von worked together on tracks like That and All These. These collaborations weren't just about making music. They were a reflection of their brother-like friendship and their shared commitment to making their mark in the industry. They were homies, even when deciding not to rat each other out in court, even though they later found out that Von was actually guilty. And there was this one crazy moment in a Breakfast Club interview where Durk coughed in a signal when things were getting way too awkward.
When you get to that line, have you ever been convicted of...
You then start making...
Have you ever no experiences doing nothing. I ain't, you know? Word.
So when King Von was tragically shot and killed outside an Atlanta nightclub, his passing not only shook the hip-hop community, but also left a profound void in Lil Durk's life. From that instant, he took to his Instagram to say, "My twin gone, I love you baby bro D-Roy." But King Von wasn't a saint either. He was in and out of a couple of legal roller coasters, even till the time of his death. One time, Durk and Von were charged to court for the shooting of 23-year-old young Alexander Weatherspoon. It was serious, but the duo kept their cool while maintaining innocence. Lil Durk was said to have pulled the trigger that shot Alexander Weatherspoon, even though he turned himself in, saying, "I have nothing to hide. I have nothing to run from." His attorney argued that it couldn't have been him because despite having a gun in the footage, it wasn't shown that he actually used it. For that, Durk was charged with 5 felonies, which were inclusive of criminal attempt to commit murder, aggravated assault, and a handful more, like unlawful employment by association with a criminal street gang to participate in a crime, and possession of firearms during felony antics. It wasn't all. He was also said to have stolen cash worth $30,000, some jewelry, and the vehicle of Weatherspoon before that day he was attacked. So what happened on that night? The one that took King Von from us. Von and his crew were living it up after his album dropped, Welcome to O-Block. The vibes were flowing, and Club Opium was the place to be. Durk was all over that album, showing up not once but twice, and the crowd loved it. That night, they rolled up to Monaco Hookah Lounge after leaving Opium, but things took a turn for the worse. Von and his gang were ready to party, but he had an off vibe that night, acting all different. According to his manager, Jameson Francois, aka 100K Track, that's when a familiar face caught his crew's eye. Quando Rondo, peacefully catching Zaz's in his car. The same Quando who had just appeared in Von's interview with Angela Yee. As Von's crew headed to the club, he spotted Rondo and decided to kick off a one-sided brawl. Punches were thrown, chaos ensued, and amidst it all, shots rang out. Sadly, King Von didn't make it out alive, and Lil Tim caught some bullets himself from the nearby police. It's been a battle of truth about who killed who and why, but the truth, well, sometimes it's a tricky thing to pin down, to show you that real connections never die. About 6 weeks ago, Lil Durk took to Instagram to promote his late brother King Von's album Grandson, with the caption, "King Von, I miss you broski." How the beef started. Lil Durk and Lil Tim have been having a big feud for a while now. Durk, known for his music and is getting better after a tough time, didn't hold back, calling Tim a nerd and Quando a little boy. But Quando sees things differently. He's ready to go to extreme lengths for Lil Tim, even saying he'd die for him. And he believes Tim would do the same for him, and that really means a lot to him. This whole thing between Durk and Tim actually began because of Durk's issues with NBA Youngboy, another rapper. This goes back a bunch of years and has been getting worse. Back in 2017, Durk and NBA Youngboy were part of their own groups but liked each other's music. They even made songs together. In 2018, Durk talked nicely about NBA Youngboy in a podcast, and they even hung out on Instagram Live. But things were changing because of King Von. That's when problems started between Durk and NBA Youngboy. Back in March 2019, King Von didn't hold back one bit when he spilled his thoughts about NBA Youngboy's tunes on Instagram Live.
Youngboy talking about on this song, bro.
What?
You talking crazy on this.
Oh, yeah?
He ain't even like that.
Oh!
On this nah.
On his
Cap. You got cap in your raps.
Von wasn't mincing words. He went on to call out Youngboy's lyrical claims, suggesting they might not hold true to his real experiences. Even though Youngboy didn't publicly clap back, fans speculated that he caught wind of the diss. The scene quieted down for a couple of years, leading some to believe that the two were under the watchful eye of authorities, given their criminal records. NBA Youngboy is energetic. You can check that out in his style and tracks, and it's not news that he openly declared his rival with King Von. His music is good, and his gritty storytelling and raw lyrics are top-notch. Call it a career competition or just two alpha males getting at each other. Both artists threw jabs at each other in their songs and on social media. Fans were quick to pick up on the tensions, and soon enough, it turned into a full-blown lyrical feud. It wasn't just about the music anymore. It became personal. Tracks were dropping left and right, and with each release, the stakes seemed to get higher. These two were trading lyrical blows, throwing shade, and making references that had fans speculating and dissecting every word. The intensity of the beef grew as lines got crossed, and the entire entire hip-hop community was watching. Here's where things became complicated. At that moment, Youngboy's ex-girlfriend, Janya Michelle, became the reason for the rumors which started swirling that Von was romantically linked with Michelle. Von didn't help matters when he shared photos with her. Amid the gossip, he tried to set the record straight, stating that they were working on music together. But his words didn't sit well with Youngboy's camp. Quando, who was Youngboy's protege, wasn't too thrilled with the situation even after Von's death, threw subliminal disses Von's way on his song Want Me Dead. You know how fans can have the keen eyes to pick out the in-betweens, but it wasn't just about the individuals. Their record labels also came into play. Both rappers were signed to different labels, which added fuel to the fire. And then, speculation grew that the alleged beef was more about their label crews. If you take a look at the night of the altercation between Von and Quando, it wasn't just about them. It was a clash between rival crews that escalated into a tragic shootout, leaving Von fatally wounded, leading to his death. The aftermath brought arrests, and Tim was one of 5 suspects apprehended in connection with Von's death.
That's just what the music is. Like,
Right.
the real life, it ain't got nothing to do with the music. Like, I'm not slow. I'm not gonna. It ain't.
Right.
Real life. People on that shit. That's it.
This was King Von in an interview talking about life, career, relationships, and other trivia things you'd hear of in an interview, except that everybody would have a different view of what he said. When this statement was made, you could pretty much think of his relationship with Durk. However, Von was quite the unruly one, and it shows in his choices: disses, murder mastermind of rival gang members, and all shades of street. But Lil Durk was pretty much concerned with building a name in hip-hop rap. King Von was the kind of friend that would constantly get you into trouble just because they can't help it, and not really because they wanted to. To think of it, in the incident that got him killed, Durk wasn't even with him at that time. If he was, maybe Von wouldn't have, considering the fact that at one time, Von almost self-snitched and had to get some senses knocked back into him by Lil Durk, coughing loudly for everyone in the interview room to catch on. If you check out his longtime beef with NBA Youngboy, who's quite a danger on his own, and with what he did to G Money, you'd see that these guys are lethal and shouldn't be crossed. Well, the circumstances surrounding G Money's murder are still suspicious, troubling, and a source of disputes within the rap industry. DeAndre Fields, aka NBA Pap, 26-year-old associate of NBA Youngboy, was indicted for second-degree murder. Garrett Burton, known by his rap name as G Money, was killed in a parking lot outside his music studio on Dallas Drive in Baton Rouge, and DeAndre Fields was accused of killing G Money, who was just 22 years old at the time of his death. G Money was part of the TBG, or Top Boy Gorilla Group, while NBA Youngboy, whose birth name is Kentrell Gaulden, founded the NBA, or Never Broke Again group. It was when DeAndre Fields was arrested that the beef between G Money and Youngboy became an open business. Youngboy's sister was another bone of contention for both rappers. Youngboy wasn't happy with his sister hooking up with G Money. However, G Money was up and about and ready to spill that he had been intimate with her. He wasn't even afraid to admit that he'd been on a sexual roller coaster with Youngboy's sister, which he even mentioned making a related comment in an interview.
He mad about his sister too, though.
About his sister?
Yeah, I had her a long time ago.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he mad about that. He wasn't really tripping on it back then, though. You know what I'm saying? He be calling me big brother and shit. You hear me? I guess he just let that famous shit get to his head.
The beef went out of hand, and G Money was killed the following month. Fields, the suspect, was interviewed by the police shortly after Burton's death in September 2017. He was scared of getting a comeback and left Baton Rouge with his mother and son to new roads. However, his phone records later revealed that he was in Baton Rouge during the incident. Nobody could connect him to the NBA until he confessed to police that he'd be willing to shoot for the group to carry out street justice. The beef hasn't stopped despite Field facing a life sentence. Youngboy's agent was fatally shot in 2018, and another local rapper affiliated with G Money was shot later that year. And despite King Von being dead, Lil Durk and NBA Youngboy continued the beefing for a while now, although they seem to have made up according to DJ Academics. Durk portrayed what it meant to be a true friend because he was obviously pissed about Von's death, and he took aim at Youngboy in his song Aha. In the track, he mentioned is acting like they really like that since my Brody died. Just got out the feds, you bring up murders with your police. Youngboy responded with his own diss track, I Hate Youngboy, saying he called me a bitch, that's India, that be your hoe, and the two have been going back and forth ever since. There have been reports of violence between their crews, and it's unclear when or if the beef will end. They may claim to be getting to the peace station now, but somehow in the middle of all this, their profiles have been gaining boosts and getting them more attention. So even though it's a bad situation, it's also working out for them in some ways. Maybe one day, Durk and Tim might bury the hatchet, but for now, it looks like the beef is here to stay. Stars burn out. Only bad thing about a star is they burn up. The hip-hop world is where lyrics are laced with stories of triumph, tragedy, and the gritty realities of life. J. Cole's latest song, She Knows, resonates deeply. Among the lines that struck a chord were his references to musical stars like Aaliyah and Michael Jackson, whose lives were abruptly cut short. Their paths might have been different from King Von's, but the stark truth remains. King Von had carved his own star status in the realm of hip-hop, never to be forgotten. You know, stars, they usually shine super bright, burning like crazy on their journey. But King Von's fire was different. It was like the self-destructive spark, a fire that could have messed him up big time. He was headed down a road that could have messed up his buddy Lil Durk too, if things hadn't changed and separated them after the Weatherspoon case. Von and Lil Durk weren't just rappers talking about street life in their songs. They were the streets like they lived and breathed it. They found their crew in the Black Disciples gang, and their lives were all about street cred and defiance, and they were racking up mugshots before they were even adults. But Durk was the one who wanted something more than just the streets. They both jumped into the rap game together, but their paths took a different turn. Lil Durk had this hunger for music, and that hunger became his ticket to stardom. But Von couldn't shake off the streets that raised him. Their partnership might have held Durk back from going all in on his music. King Von, though, was in deep with the streets. His lyrics were just his life story. He was stuck and couldn't escape. Then came the Weatherspoon case, and that was the game changer. It was a lifeline for Durk, pulling him out of the gravity that was slowly pulling Von down. The case seemed strong, with witnesses and camera footage against them. Yet, in a surprising turn of events, all charges against Durk were dropped in October 2022 by the prosecutors involved. This sudden decision left many wondering about the true reasons behind it. It looked like Lil Durk cooperated with authorities to snitch, but that probably wasn't a factor. Durk was, and still is, committed to Von, even if he's no longer walking the earth. Another perspective could be what Durk's attorney talked about when the surveillance footage was showing someone's hand firing shots, not necessarily Lil Durk himself. Well, whatever it was, it kind of kept them apart for a while. They couldn't be seen together, and that was probably one of the reasons Durk wasn't with him on the day he died. In a re-uploaded 4 hours documentary series titled King Von, Rap's First Serial Killer by Trap Lore Ross, an in-depth look into the life of Von's violent life details how he carefully masterminded and eliminated rivals was included. Some of the names may not be new to you anymore. In October 2012, in a gang fracas, shockingly 15 of the victims were connected to rival gangs, and among the casualties was a 17-year-old boy named Richard Modell, known to his loved ones as Modell McCambry. He had set out to meet a girl that night, but his life took a tragic turn. Modell was connected to the opposing gang Gangster Disciples, and his death was initially attributed to someone else named T-Roy, Von's best friend. It seemed that Modell had become caught in the crossfire of an ongoing feud between rival factions. He and his 18-year-old cousin were ambushed while walking the streets. Modell was rushed to Stroger Hospital, but the wounds to his chest proved fatal. His cousin was also injured, but managed to reach Northwestern Memorial Hospital. It was after Von had been killed that the Chicago Police Department eventually linked him to Modell's death. In the same October that Modell died, a 23-year-old Derek Johnson, or P5, also died from gunshot wounds. Despite being rushed to the hospital, he succumbed to his injuries. During his lifetime, both Von and members of O-Block seemed to taunt P5's death, often making reference to it. His posts occasionally hinted at his involvement in violent incidents, leading to speculation about certain incidents, including P5's and Modell's deaths. One day before P5's death, Von's tweet suggested distance from his friend T-Roy, possibly implying T-Roy's deeper involvement in violence. The tweet hinted at a concerning attitude toward violence. P5's cousin, Robert Grayer, was satisfied with karma over Von's death too. Another post from Gucci from Jaro City simply said, "Long live crack," a tribute to P5, showcasing a desire to honor his memory despite the turmoil surrounding his death. That's not all there is. In one of Von's tweets, he alluded to another death just a month after the killings of Modell and P5. His target this time was Boss Trell. Trell was affiliated with the Gangster Disciples gang, a rival gang, and he had to take the fall for it by a gunshot to the head. Despite all efforts to save him, he didn't survive. The aftermath of the shooting revealed that the Chicago Police Department claimed to have found a gun on Boss Trell, adding complexity to the circumstances surrounding his untimely death. Cash Out, another gang member, immortalized him in the song Dear Boss Trell as an invaluable shooter. But years later, the mother of Von's rival, rapper FBG Duck, came forward and told the story in a shadowy chapter related to Modell's death. According to her, King Von and his friend T-Roy were allegedly involved in Boss Trell's killing. These accusations surfaced not long after an FBI witness claimed that the Chicago rapper had ordered a hit on FBG Duck, and even the ladies weren't sitting this one out. Gakira Barnes, also known as K.I., was one fierce and trigger-happy avenger. She was out for revenge for her fallen friends, and for a teenager, she was pretty deadly, but she embraced it. Sadly, in April of 2014, she got taken out while strolling down Eberhart Street. After her tragic death, some disturbing pics showed up on Instagram of a young girl toying around with guns like they were playthings, fully embodying that tough shooter the image she was known for. The big shots in her Flyboy gang praised her fearlessness, making her someone folks both dreaded and looked up to. And in 2021, unsealed police documents hinted at the identity of K.I.'s alleged killer. Witnesses named rapper King Von as the shooter, although he was never formally charged in connection with her death. In August 2020, just 3 months before the death of King Von, rapper FBG Duck, whose real name was Carlton Weekly, fell victim to a brutal act of violence. On a fateful Tuesday afternoon around 4:30 p.m. local time, 4 assailants came out from 2 cars and opened fire on Weekly in the Gold Coast area, which was a sort of luxurious shopping district adjacent to downtown Chicago. Rumors surfaced that Von again might have been involved in the murder, but Von surprised many by sharing details about his relationship with FBG Duck. In a tweet on September 16, 2020, King Von disclosed that he and Duck had settled their differences and were working towards unity for their community. But according to a witness statement provided to FBI agents, King Von allegedly offered a $100,000 bounty for FBG Duck's life. The witness's statement revealed unsettling details, claiming that after FBG Duck's death, King Von celebrated with gang members and even bought custom necklaces for those allegedly involved in the murder. The witness pointed fingers at folks from O-Block, saying they might be tied to the murder. The bunch included Charles Liggins, Kenneth Robertson, Carlos Alford, Christopher Thomas, and Marcus Smart. And now, these guys are dealing with some heavy-duty charges. Another in this long list was Malcolm Stuckey, who only wanted to attend a friend's birthday party when his life was tragically cut short on May 29, 2014. A bullet, shot from a Smith & Wesson gun that shouldn't have been in the wrong hands, hit him in the head. This poor guy, Malcolm, just a college student from the Chicago suburbs, got caught up in some gang violence he had nothing to do with. It's all because of those loose gun laws down in Mississippi. Those laws made it too darn easy for guns to end up in the hands of crooks, even way up in Illinois, hundreds of miles away. Among the guests at the party Malcolm attended was King Von, and it was before Malcolm's arrival that Von noticed rival gang members at the party and wisely decided to steer clear of trouble. Lamenda Jones, the host and cook of the day, had reminded Von not to cause any disturbances. Unfortunately, fate had a different plan. He and fellow Black Disciples member Michael Wade came back to look for the rival gang members they had seen earlier, but they saw him first and shot at them. Unfortunately, Stuckey was caught in between and he died. Months later, Von and Wade were apprehended. Von refused to cooperate with the investigation, while Wade initially agreed to testify against his friend, but later withdrew his promise. The case faced challenges, particularly when police found the firearm allegedly used by Von in another shooting, now in the possession of someone else. For someone as violent as King Von was, his several encounters with law enforcement couldn't have been less than 10, but the exact number of his arrests isn't definite. King Von's first notable encounter with the law occurred when he was just 16 years old. He was arrested in Chicago on charges related to unlawful possession of a firearm. August 2017 was no smooth ride for King Von, as he found himself in the hot seat once again. This time, the reason behind his arrest was tied to some shady dealings involving controlled substances, with the intention to peddle them on the streets. But that wasn't the end of it. The infamous Weatherspoon case added another layer to his legal woes. Alongside Lil Durk, Von faced some seriously heavy charges, including attempted murder and a laundry list of other offenses. Even beyond these high-profile incidents, he had a knack for getting on the wrong side of the law. He had a few more encounters with police for being in possession of dangerous weapons, painting a picture of a life constantly entangled with legal issues. Unfortunately, before he could fully navigate the complex world of his legal battles, King Von's life was tragically cut short. Interestingly though, for most of the murders he masterminded, he wasn't alive to be arrested and rearrested or given a sentence. Either way, he was going to jail for life or die by whatever means, but karma did catch up.